G'day, Professor Joseph Drew here. I'm here to talk to you this time about why local government taxes are good. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, no, there's nothing good about paying tax at all, but certainly in a relative sense, they are good. And in a moral sense, they are good. So please hang on, bear with me a minute, and I'm pretty sure by the end of the video, you'll be agreeing with me that your local government taxes are indeed good. So first of all, they're good value. You think about the other taxes you pay. A lot of people whinge about their local government taxes, and the reason why you whinge about them is that you get sent a tax notice every quarter, and you've got to withdraw the money out of your bank, and you notice handing over this money that you thought was once your own that was in your bank account. You really notice it and you feel the pain of doing it. But we are paying tax all the time, which far exceeds the local government tax. You know, consider people on incomes over 180 grand a year, they're paying 45 cents in the dollar on their tax. I think my tax bill for last year was $50,000. I get absolutely no federal government services where I live 30 kilometres outside of Tamworth. I pay a lot of tax. I can't see much in return. GST, every single time I go to a shop, every time you go to a shop, you're paying in Australia, you're paying 10% tax. That's an awful lot of money over the course of the year. Thousands, probably tens of thousands of dollars. And yet we're complaining about a local government tax bill that's usually $2,000, $2,500. We forget about the tax that we're constantly paying. Even our grog in Australia is taxed several dollars per litre on packaged beer. Plus, you get to pay a tax on top of that tax. The first tax is called an excise, and then they tax you GST on top of your excise. Stamp duty, if you buy a new car or new property, you could be paying up to $5.50 for every $100 that you spend in additional tax. So when you think about it, you think about all the government services you actually use on a daily basis, and you think about how much value you get out of them, and then you compare it to how little tax you pay to your local government compared to how much tax you pay to your state and federal government, and I think you'll be agreeing with me if you sit down and do the numbers that yes, local government taxes are incredibly good value. But more importantly to me as a natural law philosopher, I'm a natural law philosopher as well as an economist and a trained accountant, but more important to me is that they're good in a moral sense. It's a philosophically good tax. What we are doing when we charge a local government tax that is based on land value is we're trying to recover some of the unearned wealth that you've made on your property by virtue of the efforts of others. So if you buy a piece of land and do nothing with it, the land value will usually go up every year by quite a considerable margin. That goes up because of the efforts of other people. Immigration, birth rates, demand for land, new industries, new roads, whatever. It's not because you've done anything. You can buy this block of land and do absolutely nothing and make money. Now, why should you make money out of the efforts of other people? All you're being asked to do when you pay a land-based tax is return some of that money to the people who generated it for you. And indeed, by returning some of that money to the community, it allows the community to build new infrastructure, new services, which attracts even more people to the area, which creates even more unearned wealth for you. So typically for a person, the increase in your land value will be 5 to 10 times higher than your local government tax bill will be. So you get to keep by far the lion's proportion of your local of your unearned wealth based on your unrealized property gain. And you're asked to return some of it to the community. But as I say, you don't have to be an altruist to think that that's a good idea, because by returning that money to the community, you facilitate and allow the community to generate even more wealth for you. And the other good thing about local government tax based on land values is it operates on the residuum, not the proprium of your income. So the proprium, in Aristotelian terms, is the amount you are required to keep your household at the standard of living they're used to. The residuum is what is left over. Okay, now most people aren't drawing on the increase in unearned wealth to pay for their household expenses. Most people don't. It's something we realize way down the track when we sell our house or we leave it as an inheritance to our children. Most people aren't living off the increase in value in their land. So a tax that's based on the increased value on your land is acting on that residuum, not on the proprium that you're counting on to maintain your lifestyle. So it's a much better tax in a moral sense from that perspective also. Now, look, if you're enjoying this video, if you're learning things you didn't know before, please subscribe. I love to give you information. I love to make you think about things in different ways. And what I'm really trying to do is help councils and help communities to be the best that they can be. I get absolutely nothing out of this, and all I ask in return is that you do two things. First thing, flick the link to my videos off to a mate, off to a friend. That helps more people view it. It helps more people receive help. The second thing is please subscribe. It allows me to justify to my workplace why I'm spending this time making videos, and it does take quite some time out of my day, and which means that I can continue to make videos into the future. Also, I'll mention that the type of things that I'm talking about constantly in this video are all covered in my new book, Saving Local Government. I make nothing out of people buying it, but I would encourage you to get a copy or borrow a copy. I don't really care where you get it from. Springer is my publisher. Go to the Springer site, you'll find out all about it. But really, if I had the opportunity to get everyone involved in local government a copy of this book this Christmas, I would. If I could afford it, I would, because it's all the information you need to do better for your community, which is for everyone's benefit. And of course, as I've already touched on, your local government tax, it's not an altruistic act. It goes to the common good, which is to help accruing to people as a result of cooperation. By cooperating and contributing some of that unearned wealth back to the community that allowed you to get that unearned wealth in the first place, you're actually helping everyone, including yourself. You don't have to be an altruist to think that local government tax is good. And the other thing too to remember as well, particularly if you're faced with an increase to your local government tax, you won't be happy about it. No one's happy about paying tax, but think about the alternative. The alternative is that your government doesn't tax you sufficiently. And what happens when that happens? Have a look at our state governments, have a look at our federal governments. We leave a whopping great big burden and debt for our children and our grandchildren, and that is plain wrong. We don't do it in our normal everyday lives. You know, consider the personal budget metaphor. In my personal budgeting, I'm seeking to leave my children a good inheritance, wealth, net wealth, much more than I receive myself. Why then would I think it was reasonable to bequeath to my children as a public inheritance net debt and huge debt? We've got trillions of dollars of debt in Australia. Why do we think it's reasonable to give that to our children and our grandchildren? We would never think to do it in our own personal budget. We'd want to give them wealth. But in our public finances, we want to give them debt. And it's just plain morally wrong to do that to the next generation that can't even speak and have a voice in the decisions that we're making. So it's good compared to that alternative. It's also good compared to the other alternative when a local government doesn't charge high enough fees, doesn't charge enough tax. Ultimately, they will financially fail. The local government minister will appoint an administrator. The administrator will come in. They will suddenly slash services that you consider essential, that I consider essential. They'll tell you are entirely discretionary and luxuries, like they did at Central Darling Shire. Jobs will go, more or less overnight. Councillors will go. Any democratic voice you have in deciding your fate as a community will go, and it will be many years, perhaps even decades, like it has been in New South Wales, before you get that voice back. Is that what you want? No. So look, when I get my rates notice, I can't say I'm ever overjoyed. But when I think about how much tax I pay to other levels of government, when I can think about how little value I get from other levels of government, and how much I use local government services in a comparative sense, well, then I have to concede, look, this is really a good tax. And it's not just good tax in terms of value, it's a good tax morally. It forces me to return to the community a small fraction of the unearned wealth that the community has given me. And that's not an unreasonable thing at all. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please remember to subscribe and click the link to someone else. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.